My guests have most likely animated a good chunk of your childhood. From An American Tail, to Land Before Time, to Secret of Nim, to Anastasia, just to name a few. They've also animated innovative games like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. They have written several books and taught several classes on the art of animation, and they're in the process of creating another hand-drawn animated film that you can help bring to life with Dragon's Lair the movie. It is a pleasure to welcome two animation giants, Don Bluth and Gary Goldman. How are you two?
We're good. Doing fine, but I'm only 5'2" and he's 4 feet. I think it's really not giants.
I don't usually do this. I'm going to start off with a question from my fans. This is the most requested question that they wanted me to ask you. After watching my reviews of some of your films, why haven't you killed me yet?
Why haven't we? You know what? It's just the reverse, Doug. If you really want to know the truth, it's reversed. I have taken such a liking to your cutting style that I'm trying to get that in everything we do now. I love the way you're cutting.
Wow, that is the last thing I expected you to say.
No, I like it. You know, why linger on an image any longer than a nanosecond? I don't get it, you know. It's good to do what you're doing.
It could be a good idea to kill him. They would send us to jail. We get a lot more done.
It's important that this one stay alive.
Oh, okay, fine.
The Don Bluth Productions had a real mafia thing going. I had no idea. Speaking of which, we'll start right at the beginning. You both started working at Disney for several of their films. Got this style that is very similar to what they did, this beautiful, smooth style. What drew you to animation, and particularly that kind of style?
I think those moments in your childhood, you know, when you see something for the first time, I think that leaves an impression on you. I know it did on me. And after seeing some of these Disney films, first one being Snow White, it left something, an impression that I really loved the experience and I keep wanting to see it. And I knew the name Walt Disney. So I wanted to go back and see everything that he did. And each time it was that same wonderful feeling. The colors, perhaps. It had to do with the musical imagery, because animation is sort of like music, and I salute to that. As you grow older, that just remains with you, and you seem to capture early what you're going to behave like later on.
I started off wanting to be a panel artist for Dennis the Menace in the papers. I met a guy once, and he actually sent me into animation. Within, I think, 6 weeks after meeting Don there in Disney, they showed us Pinocchio. I was so awestruck by the imagery on the screen. I started coming to work at 6 in the morning and not leaving until 8 o'clock at night. I wanted to be there.
Once you've animated and you flip the drawings, you know, you see those pages one at a time going by, and those images then seem to come to life, that is a buzz. It's really a magical feeling. And I know the poor guys who are over there and the gals who work in CG don't quite get that same buzz. It's just a real feeling. I mean, why do people like that? I don't know, but it's something that once it gets in your blood, you love it.
You literally started your own animation studio after working with Disney in your garage, and even though you had worked with the biggest name in animation with Walt Disney Studios, what made you both want to leave and pursue your own studio?
We were being trained to be animators. And at the same time, management was telling us that, you know, within 6 years, these masters are going to retire, and you need to be ready to take on the helm. Don came up with, he says, look, you know, this isn't going to happen just here. Why don't we go to my house and we'll do a short film and we'll learn a lot faster.
There was no one there really who was going to be a director. We're all learning how to animate, but how do you put a picture together? So none of that was being trained, and no one seemed to be a bit alarmed at the fact, you know, that we weren't learning fast enough to replace the old guard. Everything in the studio was union controlled. We couldn't use any of the cameras or anything like that to experiment. So the only way we could experiment was to get outside the reaches of that union, buy our own equipment, and then just feel free to explore. And in exploring, we found out things that we really needed to know. Like the straw that broke the camel's back with me was in Rescuers, I believe it was, where they didn't even paint the white of the eye in the little mouse anymore. It was just all the same color as the skin. Because that
drove me nuts too. I'm glad that drove you insane, because I remember seeing that movie and I'm like, why aren't their eyes white? It's the same color as their fur. So I'm so glad that drove you insane too, because that drove me nuts.
Yes, it did me too. And so I said, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Why do you say that it's too expensive to do the things that made on the screen beautiful? So in experimenting out in the garage, what came about is we found out that it wasn't too expensive. They were just saying that, and I guess they were saying that something had told them from upstairs. So we went back and said to them, hey, you know, we found out we can do this. Innocently, we said that. And they said, you guys need to just be still. Just do what you're asked.
Eventually, the audience is going to catch on and see that it's getting cheaper looking. You're getting a cheaper product.
Do you know, Walt was once quoted as saying, the worst thing that I ever did at the studio was to go public. And when you go public, of course, you had stockholders, and now you have to please all of those people. I think were he there at the time, you know, when we were all there, if he were there, I think it probably wouldn't have gone in that direction. He was already heading out into animatronics and all kinds of things, you know, with Disneyland. And I was there in Sleeping Beauty when he was building Disneyland in Anaheim. So we didn't see him at the studio too often, but I think he would have been a pioneer, and he would have seen that the pictures were losing their luster.
One of the things that circulate for a little bit, and I always wanted to figure out if this was true, there was a rumor that you, Don, said that you can show children almost anything as long as there's a happy ending. First of all, is there any truth to saying that? And second, even if there isn't, do you believe kind of that mindset? Because your films did go very dark in many times.
If you don't show the darkness, you don't appreciate the light. If it weren't for December, no one would appreciate May. It's just important that you see both sides of that. And as far as a happy ending, I believe the happy ending is important if you really want to have mothers have their children go see it, and if they themselves will go. But there's more to it than that. I think more importantly is that when you walk out of the theater, there's something that you have that you get to take home. What did it teach me? Am I a better person for having watched it? And I think Walt was very, very much in that groove, trying to say something. And I can tell it from his films, you know, that he was a moral guy, and he was really trying to say something that would connect with a nation that had morals. Nowadays, I'm not sure what's being produced and whether it has, you know, it has something to say or not. I'm just not sure. I had a little bit of problem, which I probably shouldn't talk about. I had a little bit of problem with Inside Out. I think it's because the little girl never did anything on her own without little gremlins up in her head telling her what to feel. I'd rather say, you're in control, you decide what you want to be, you decide whether you're going to go right or left, and that's important.
You have worked with several great actors, both very well-known and very under the radar, but definitely wonderful, wonderful performers. Who are your favorite actors that you've ever worked with in terms of animation?
Without a blush, I can tell you. That would be Angela Lansbury. This is a woman that, you know, her persona on screen and on stage, you would never suspect. She's a very, very humble lady and eager to please and to help whatever she can. And this is the part that was the clincher for me. She didn't go out and buy fancy lunches. Every day she brought her own little brown bag lunch, and I thought, oh, that is so appealing. Carol Channing, she was wonderful. She was willing to do anything to help.
Speaking of which, you have also worked with some of the greatest composers. The music in your films, I always feel, is the one thing that seems almost just as phenomenal as the animation, because you work with composers like James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith. What was it like working with these great musicians, and how did you manage to get such a great sound out of them? Because the music in your movies are just always phenomenal.
Jerry Goldsmith ended up being really a close friend. He had told us he was going to do a sweeping score. He says, I'm not going to do some Mickey Mouse thing like they did over at Disney. And as he got into it and he was watching the animation, he called and he says, I don't think I'm going to be doing a sweeping score. He says, you seem to have a rhythm going on, and the rhythm changes and stuff in the animation, the way the characters are walking, the tempos. They're there. I don't want to dismiss those. Those are musical. Same thing from Jamie Horner. He saw the same things in it. We had just signed Jerry to do The Secret of NIMH, and we started getting a call from James Horner's agent. And he says, you guys need to hire James Horner, and he's the next Jerry Goldsmith. I said, but we have Jerry Goldsmith. At least 3 weeks, he called me once a week to see if he couldn't talk me out of Jerry Goldsmith, because we could get James Horner for a lot cheaper. And I said, no, we're happy with Jerry. You know, and it was the very next picture that we did feature was American Tail. Jerry was supposed to do the movie. And Jerry's there. He says, guys, I have to apologize. I said I'll do it, and My agent says, I've got 6 pictures already for next year, and there's no way I'm going to be able to squeeze this in.
James Horner's the one who wrote the wedding song, Somewhere Out There. He actually did it. It was amazing when he did it, too, but he he wrote this thing, and Steven Spielberg listened to it, and he said, well, I don't know, but keep working on it. So then he played he played it for a songwriter, lyricist, and that would be Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. Yeah, and he played it for them, and Barry Mann, who has a voice that a rhino would like to have, you know. So Barry Mann says, too many notes. He'd written it kind of like a little rondo, so it went da 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 da. It was so anyway. Barry said, "How about somewhere?"
And with his index finger, played the song
on the piano
for James.
And it was really, really great. And everybody said, "Now that's fewer notes. It'll probably work that way."
I'm assuming he was an Amadeus fan.
Yes.
Well, yeah, too many notes.
Another fan-requested question that people have been hounding me to ask you to, and I'm quite curious myself. Have either of you ever seen any of the sequels that have been made from your movies, like Secret of NIMH 2, the Land Before Time sequels, American Tail 2? Have any of these ever crossed your paths?
I've tried a couple of times.
Have you?
Yeah, I've tried a couple. I tried to watch the sequel to NIMH and everything, and I just felt really, really bad. You know, because I saw a lot of opportunities that kind of were missed. And I don't like to knock anybody else's work too much. I tried to watch even Five Goes West. And there's those things in it that bother me just a little bit. And if I can't track the story at all, then, you know, I immediately stop watching. Because I like to remember the good part. I like to remember, you know, how it really does work and what a good story can do and how it can change the way you feel inside. I like all that. Land Before Time. Land, how many are they going to make? It goes on and on and on. So it would be good, actually, if, and I don't think we've ever done a sequel.
Didn't you do Bartok? Didn't you do the Anastasia, the Bat one?
Yeah, that was because we had nothing to do at the time. And we had a whole crew there, and so we said, well, let's just write a story. So we wrote a story about Baba Yaga, the Russian fairy tale, the witch. So we wrote that story and tried to just bring the old character that everybody knew about and bring him into it and enter him into the story.
No, what happened was when we finished Anastasia, they did not have a script ready for us. They had 2 years, actually 3 years, to come up with a second story.
How can you not write a script in 3 years?
I don't know. But they didn't deliver it, and they said, we don't really know what to give you. And we said, what if we come up with an idea for, you know, to give you some time? And we came up with
3 more years.
With Bartok and brought in a writer. They didn't know the writer. They didn't ask a thing. And he said, okay, can you do it for $25 million? And we said, yes, we can. But the only way we could do it is if we did it in 14 months or less to get it done for $25 million. And all the accountants at Fox kept telling us that you can't do it for that. Everybody there makes too much money. You'll never get it for that. I said, we will. And they never came to look. And it was at the very end they said, wow, this is funny. Can we put this on the big screen? I said, no, we cut corners. It's not rendered for the big screen. This is television.
You know, I actually saw it on TV one night. I was at a convention. I saw it on TV, and I'm watching it. And I'm like, you know, that was really a lot of fun. I was unbelievably shocked how much I liked it because it just looked like a basic straight-to-DVD, like those Disney straight-to-DVD sequels. And I'll just tell you, good job on that because I thought it was very entertaining.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
You touched on this a little bit. For both of you, what are your thoughts on modern-day animation, particularly cinematic animation?
Well, most of the animation nowadays, it seems to me, the produced in the United States, has gone over to computer. Computer graphics is a style, and it looks all right. And if they tell a good story, I can sit through it. I certainly love Nemo and Tangled, very, very good. Up was very, very good. But what happens, I think, as soon as someone sees a successful picture done in CG, everybody else jumps in too because they want to make some money too. So what happens is you get sort of a generic look of the CG, which is starting for me to look like the last one I saw. So it feels kind of like puppets rather than the animation that I grew up with. And I would rather I would rather see something that had the human touch in it a little bit more. That one can exist at the same time the other one exists. You don't have to have one or the other. What I'm hoping is that with Dragon's Lair is that maybe we can reintroduce what I think got thrown out. Certainly in Europe, they still appreciate it. And there's a lot of hand-drawn animation that's still being produced around the world. But somehow we in the United States are lost in a fog and don't seem to know that we've thrown out something very valuable.
I always ask myself, why did I feel more of a connection to hand-drawn animation than CG animation? I very much like CG animation, but I felt more of a connection to hand-drawn. They felt very much like you get a model, a good-looking model, and then you move it around, and you move the expressions, where with hand-drawn, you have to draw them in every single frame, and you have to convince the person in every single frame that this thing is alive, and you have to put the work in every single time.
There's another thing that I think worth mentioning on this very subject, too. I know that CG tries harder and harder and harder to give a more realistic, beautiful look, right? So there's shadows, the characters are shaded, there's all kinds of things, and now somebody is saying, how can we put pores in the skin? Well, why don't you just hire an actor? Because if you keep moving that fantasy or that magic of animation towards the live action, pretty soon, I'm not sure you have animation anymore. I think animation has a way of dramatizing visually in a way that I know no other medium can do. And that moment when the witch goes down those stairs and goes into that room, throws the box and decides to make herself into a hag. That is so powerful. And, you know, drinking the stuff and the thunder and the lightning and changing into this old woman. Those are magical moments that I have not experienced with all of the wonderful CG that I haven't experienced. I don't see the same magic there, or something doesn't connect with me, something doesn't touch. And it could be me. It could be that, you know, I'm just not familiar with what it is they're doing.
In the 90s, after so many of these very successful, wonderful films, critics did not seem to respond as strongly as with the films that are coming out, like Troll in Central Park, Pebble and the Penguin, as they did with the earlier work. In both of your opinion, what do you feel changed in that time? Was it the style or was it the audience?
That was us. It was us.
You know what? When we did NIM, we had no hands on us. We were the ones hands on that. American Tail, we pretty much had all Steven asked for. He wanted to approve the script and approve the storyboards. But once we got with other financiers, we suddenly had some chefs in the kitchen that shouldn't have been there, and they would demand that we make changes and make it simpler and more dumbed down.
There was another thing, though, really, script is everything. And you know that already. But if you don't have a good script, you know, you're not going to fix it. You can draw your fingers off if you want. It's just not going to fix it. So a lot of times we would hire a writer. We hired a writer who worked on, I think it was a movie called Witness. We hired a writer. We thought, well, there's the name's up on the screen. He must be really good. That's a great movie. He got off the airplane in Dublin, Ireland, carrying his Oscar, and I knew we were in trouble. We tried and tried with All Dogs Go to Heaven to come up with something, and we tried and tried, and didn't happen until Robert Towne said, what are you guys doing? I said, we're working on a story, and we don't know how to solve it. And he came up, he says, okay, tell me your story, and you got to do it in 5 minutes. And so we tried. He said, where's the urinal? You got too many angels. You got too much heaven in here. He says, get all that out. He says, make it just a dog story, a simple one, and you'll find that everything will go just fine. We hired someone to do Thumbelina, right? She came in and she wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and used up all the time for writing the script. And the script was not very good. I said, well, okay, I'll write the script. We've got 400 employees and they've got to animate, so I had a week to write the script. You can't write a script in a week. And so we kept getting in that same position where we were trying to hurry, get work for the staff. And the picture suffers when you do that. Had we still made more movies with Steven Spielberg, I think for sure he would have insisted that a good script happen before we ever started.
I've heard over and over Spielberg, you know, on top of being a great director, is a phenomenal producer because he allows for so much freedom. So you experienced something very similar. Did he sort of leave you guys alone and picked up the pieces where they needed to be picked up?
That's exactly what he does. He's very, very good at it. And he has an eye for what will entertain. You know, some people, they just know. They intuitively know, and he seems to have that. We'll show him the boards, and he'll say, well, right here, what if you did this, 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 and this? And you go, oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that? That's a good idea.
Well, now you have this project coming up that is going to be in your control, this Dragon's Lair movie that you've gotten, or is still in the process of getting crowdfunded. What can you tell us about it so far?
I can tell you right now that I'm not sleeping very well at night, and I have what some people would call nightmares. I just call them pleasant dreams in which ideas come to the brain. And then I keep a pad by the side of my bed, and I jot down notes, things like that. So I'm already thinking about this movie. And I have to put it in my head really, really strong that we're going to make this movie. Ideas are happening, and I've got about 5-6 pages of a treatment written so far.
It's not going to be an expansion of that game. We're not going to do a movie going through that game, but we're going to get to know who these characters are, where they came from, how they get together, what do they want. Each of those characters have to have some background, and to get the audience to invest in them.
Are they going to have the traditional designs? Are they going to be in the traditional clothes? Is Dirk going to have the orange and the yellow and the hat and everything?
We got to do that. I mean, Dirk's going to have that tunic on, the yellow and the orange and everything. You're going to have to see that. That's kind of iconic in my mind. You'll see Daphne in probably much more than you saw in the game. You'll have to be surprised on this one because the ideas are still coming in. And you guys can write in. Tell us what you'd like to see. We're open-minded.
We got somebody that can read those, right?
Yes.
People watching at home, you can still donate. We'll put a link in the description, so definitely check that out. I like to end every interview with 2 questions that are polar opposites. The first one being, whether it be professional or personal, what is the toughest thing you've ever had to go through, and how did you get through it, for both of you?
Oh, this is going to make me cry. Go ahead.
Oh, damn. Oh, yeah. Well, the hardest thing for me, I think at one point was had to go through a divorce.
This is so sad.
And with children involved. I mean, it worked out in the end. We're still friends, and we communicate still. But it was tough, and I know it's widespread in our industry. I'm talking about the film industry, not just animation. Mm-hmm. And that, with the deadlines and the trying to get things done and happen, you end up with a 7-day week and 14-hour days that you're not shunning, but not getting home in time for the family evenings.
I don't think I can talk about mine without crying. No, it has to do with the same subject also, because I've married my life to the arts. I grew up in a family of seven children. All of them have gone their separate ways and basically don't talk to each other very much. So it's very much a family that's kind of shattered and spread apart. And I've chosen career in my life, career over marriage and family. And so the toughest thing for me to go through is the loneliness that happens with just being married to art. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And there's no comfort. There's no touch. There's none of the things that I think a lot of people go through. But I think it's actually fueled a lot of the things I talk about in the movies. Like certainly in American Tale, talking about the reunion of the family is very close to me. I know what that's like, being lost from the family and then hunting for them and then finding them again. That's the hope. And I know there's a lot of people that feel that too. So that's probably the hardest thing I've had to work through over the years. But I've done it. And don't cry. I'm a perfectly happy individual right now. I don't want you to feel bad for me. I don't need any pity. I just need your money. so we can get this picture to happen.
And finally, very last question for both of you. Again, whether professionally or personally, what is the proudest thing that you've ever done?
Taking the risk to leave Disney. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but we were very gung-ho while we were at Disney and loved being there. And Don had loved the name Walt Disney since he saw Snow White when he was 4 years old. And
so it was.
Only wanted to work at Disney. And but when we got there in the 70s, it obviously wasn't what it was when Don first started back in 1955. Don said the words to our production manager at Disney when we resigned, we're going to go out there and challenge you to do and make you get better. And in the end, I think from all we've heard from the fans out there is we were able to do that in the 15 years of our independent times. That Nim and American Tail, Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven were all movies that moved people. and it moved Disney to do better.
I can say the fact that when I was just a kid, maybe 4, maybe younger, I had a dream, and the dream that I wanted was inspired by, Walt. I wanted to be able to work in the animation world, and I dreamed that maybe one day, maybe I could even make my own pictures. And I've had the pleasure of having that dream come true. A lot of people live their whole life and their dreams never really happen. And they have to settle, but they don't get a chance to really make their dreams come true. I've had that blessing, and I'm just really, really, really pleased with that. Not too many get that.
I can tell you on behalf of me and so many fans out there, we are so pleased that you made it happen too, because I really wasn't mincing words in the reviews I did, saying that you really have made such a huge impact and some phenomenal films and just amazing moments that stay with you from childhood into adulthood. So honestly, thank you not only for just coming on to doing this interview and doing our silly jokes and our reviews and stuff, but thank you for leaving such a huge impact, not just on the art form, but on us as well.
Hey, well, thank you, Doug. I've always liked the name Doug. If I ever have a son, don't hold your breath. I think I'll name him Doug.
Doug, thanks you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.